It was supposed to be a secret, locked away forever. I never imagined my actions would unravel my life so completely. I've always been confident in my ability to control the narrative, but this time, I underestimated the power of a man pushed to the brink and the devastating lengths he would go to for revenge. It began innocently enough, or so I told myself. 8 years into my marriage, I started feeling restless. My husband, Ethan, was dependable, loving, and loyal to a fault. He provided stability, but over time that stability started to feel suffocating. Then I met Lucas. He was everything Ethan wasn't: spontaneous, charismatic, and unpredictable. What started as a flirtation quickly spiraled into something much darker. I justified it to myself in 1,000 ways. It's harmless, I'd say. Ethan will never know. It doesn't change how much I love him. But deep down, I knew I was playing with fire. Lucas and I met in secret. Our affair a series of stolen moments and whispered promises. I told myself I was careful, meticulous, that Ethan would never find out. I was wrong. The first sign came subtly, a question Ethan asked about a trip I'd taken with friends. His tone was light, casual, but there was something in his eyes that made my stomach churn. "Did you enjoy your time?" he asked, his gaze lingering a little too long. I lied effortlessly, as I had so many times before, but for the first time, I felt a flicker of doubt. Had I missed something? Had he seen something? I should have stopped then. I should have ended things with Lucas and confessed everything to Ethan. But I didn't. I told myself I could handle it, that whatever suspicions Ethan had would fade with time. Instead, they grew. And so did his resolve. One evening, Ethan came home with a calmness that unnerved me. "We need to talk," he said, his voice steady, but his expression unreadable. He handed me his phone, and my heart stopped. On the screen were messages, photos, proof of my betrayal. My mind raced as I tried to figure out how he'd found out. Then he said something that chilled me to the bone. "Your mother told me." My mother. The one person I thought would never betray me. She'd always been protective of Ethan, admiring his patience and dedication to me, and now she'd chosen him over her own daughter. I felt the walls closing in, my carefully constructed lies crumbling around me. Ethan's revenge didn't come immediately. He's a patient man, methodical and precise. At first he seemed almost indifferent, as though my confession had drained him of all emotion. But then, little by little, he began to dismantle my life. It started with the social circles. Ethan began accidentally revealing my affair to our friends, ensuring my reputation was irreparably damaged. Invitations to gatherings dried up, and whispered conversations became the norm whenever I entered a room. I was humiliated, ostracized, and utterly alone. Then came the financial consequences. Ethan, ever the planner, had taken steps to secure his assets long before I'd even met Lucas. By the time the divorce papers arrived, I realized I had nothing. He'd stripped me of everything: the house, the savings, even the car I drove. "You chose to destroy what we had," he said. "Now you'll see what it feels like to lose everything." But the final blow was the one I never saw coming. Ethan had always been close to my mother. She'd often joked that she liked him more than she liked me, but I never thought she'd take his side so completely. And then, one day, Ethan dropped the bombshell. He and my mother had started seeing each other. "She's better than you," he said, his words laced with venom. "More honest, more loyal, and frankly, better in every way." The humiliation was unbearable. My own mother, the woman who had raised me, had not only betrayed me but had become the ultimate symbol of Ethan's revenge. I confronted her, of course. I screamed, cried, begged her to tell me it wasn't true, but she was unapologetic. "You brought this on yourself," she said. "Ethan deserves better, and so do I." Her words cut deeper than any of Ethan's actions. She'd chosen him over me, just as he'd intended. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself drowning in regret. I'd ruined my marriage, destroyed my relationships, and lost the respect of everyone I cared about. And for what? A fleeting affair that had cost me everything. Ethan and my mother moved on, their relationship becoming a constant reminder of my failures. They were happy, or at least they seemed to be, while I was left to pick up the shattered pieces of my life. I'd underestimated Ethan, thinking he'd quietly fade into the background, that he'd let me walk away unscathed. But he'd proven me wrong in the most devastating way possible. Looking back, I realize how blind I was, to Ethan's pain, to the consequences of my actions, to the love I'd taken for granted. I thought I could have it all, that I could deceive him without consequence. But secrets have a way of coming to light, and when they do, they leave destruction in their wake. This is my story, my cautionary tale. A reminder that betrayal comes at a cost, and sometimes that cost is more than you're willing to pay. I lost my husband, my reputation, and my family. And now, I'm left to live with the consequences of my choices, knowing I have no one to blame but myself.